Myself, Joyson, welcoming you to one of the most interesting chapters of your Essay 1 portion, Metals and Non-Metals. What are these metals and non-metals? These are elements. And there are about 115 chemical elements known at present, out of which, on the basis of their properties, they are divided into three types. The first type is the metals. The second type is the non-metals. These metals as well as non-metals are used in our daily life. Now, metals is the larger group and non-metals is a smaller group. But there were certain elements which showed properties of both metals as well as non-metals, and they were termed as metalloids. And these metalloids do not have their own properties. So, in short, we only have to understand two properties, the metallic properties and the non-metallic properties. So, we are going to study the metal as well as non-metallic properties in this chapter. Starting with, where do we find these metals? The occurrence of metals and non-metals. First of all, the most abundant metal in the Earth's crust is aluminium, which constitutes about 7% of the Earth's crust. If you think that's a lot, you have a twist at the end of it. And the second most abundant metal is iron. It constitutes about 4% of the Earth's crust. In the images below, you can see aluminium and iron. You can see the texture is different. Hence, we can distinguish between metals. But if you think metals rule in quantity, you are wrong. Because a non-metal, that is oxygen, constitutes 50% of the Earth's crust. You know how? Because it reacts with all the metals to form corresponding oxides. Hence, it is in higher quantity. The same oxygen that we breathe in. Moving on to the physical properties of metals, the thing that we've studied in 7th, 8th and 9th standard, we are going to end it in 10th standard, but a little more details this time. Metals are malleable. That is, metals can be beaten into thin sheets with a hammer when heated. You can see the image of that. Do you think, with all the might that I have, would I be able to tear a piece of metal? If your answer is no, even you can. Forget yourself, even your small brother or sister can. Remember aluminium foil that you use to pack tiffin. That same aluminium foil is made up of aluminium and you can tear it. Why? Because metals are malleable. Moving on to the second property, that is ductility. If you see a lot of wires tangling up in your legs when you're watching this video, the reason is because metals are ductile and they can be drawn into thin wires. But gold, a specific metal, gold, 1 gram of gold, you won't believe it, you can stretch it, not to 1, not to 2 meters, but 2 kilometers. Are you serious, sir? Yes, 2 kilometers long wire from 1 gram of gold. Hence, gold is the most ductile metal. Metals are very good conductors of heat. You won't believe, whenever you're cooking food, you do it in a vessel. Which vessel is that? Obviously a metal. If you don't believe me, next time when you leave a spoon inside for stirring and when you come back to stir it, it becomes hot even though it is never exposed to flame. Why? Because metals allow heat to pass through them very easily. Silver metal is the best conductor of heat, but because of its expensiveness, you cannot use it much. So cooking utensils and water boilers are made up of copper and aluminium. Now, you don't see those copper vessels at your homes much. Why? Because they are expensive. But for the hotel industry, copper vessels are a must. Imagine people waiting in queue for their food. They have to cook foods faster, hence they use copper vessels. The poorest conductors of the heat are among metals are lead and mercury.